Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here, the Executive Director of the American Constitutional Rights Union and the ACRU Action Fund, and want to welcome you to another episode of Live Free TV, brought to you by the American Constitutional Rights Union. You can visit our website at theacru.org, theacru.org, and also you can visit our Committee to Support and Defend, which is the largest constitutional conservative veterans organization in the country. So please join, because it's very important that we keep our veterans engaged and involved, and remember that the oath that we took has no statute of limitations. Speaking of that oath, we as veterans took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And when I continue to look and hear and see what's going on in the state of Minnesota, especially in the city of Minneapolis, I just have to say, there's one thing. Is it constitutional? Is it not? Is it law or is it lawlessness? Are people abiding by the law? Are people submitting to the law? Or are they doing things to interfere with the law, obstruct and impede it? Are they aligning themselves with the law or not? That's just the bottom line. All these other emotions and things of this nature and the little buttons that people out in Hollywood are wearing, that's of no consequence to me. What is happening in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is the tip of a greater iceberg for the Marxist left, who, without a doubt, do not want to see, or they don't want to understand, that this is a constitutional republic. We're a nation of laws, and they are supposed to be followed. And if they're not followed, that means that you are breaking the law. And that means that there are law enforcement officers, duly sworn law enforcement officers, that are supposed to enforce the law, being at the federal level, the state level, or at the local level, regardless. So when I hear someone such as the Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry say, and I think I'm quoting correctly, I will not enforce federal immigration law. You don't have that option, my friend, because the Constitution in Article 6, Section 2, which is known as the Supremacy Clause, clearly states that when the federal government is operating in pursuance thereof to the Constitution, to our rule of law, they are supreme over the states and lower jurisdictions. You are what the founding fathers would call a lower jurisdiction. So to say that you're not going to follow this immigration law, to say that you're not going to abide with and you're not going to cooperate with and coordinate with federal law enforcement, which is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency and their officers, to make sure that criminal illegal immigrants are not allowed back onto our streets, you're breaking the law. And there are penalties for that. There are consequences to that. There are repercussions, there are ramifications. Full stop. But what is really interesting, and thanks to the work of Cam Higbee, Data Republican, Andy No, James O'Keefe, so many others there in Minneapolis, these investigative journalists, we now know without a doubt that we have there in Minneapolis a coordinated, militarized insurgency. It is well funded. It is well supported. They have an incredible command and control communication systems, as we call that C3I in the military. And what I found was so interesting also is that they have a reporting system by which they can track and follow the Immigration and Customs Enforcement or the Customs and Border Patrol agents called a salute report. We in the military know exactly what that means. It means size, activity, location, unit, time, and equipment. That's how they're tracking the people there with ICE. That's how they're finding out what they're doing, where they're going. And this needs to be stopped. As a matter of fact, when I think about this, it reminds me of a RICO case. You know, thanks to the work of Cam Higbee, Data Republican, Andy No, James O'Keefe, all of these investigative journalists, we now know that this anti-ICE movement is very intricate. It's very well financed, is very well organized, is coordinated on a signal chat group. So they have a command and control communications infrastructure. We call that C3I in the military. And the other thing that really I found interesting was that they're using a military acronym, SALUTE, which stands for size, activity, location, unit, time, and equipment, to be able to track Immigration and Customs Enforcement agencies and Customs and Border Patrol. As a matter of fact, Renee Good and Alex Preddy were both part of this signal chat group that is about tracking ICE. So let me reiterate this once again. Title 18, United States Code 111. It is a federal felony offense to assault, resist, or impede law enforcement officers in the conduct of their duly prescribed law enforcement operations. That's exactly what this organization is doing. So now we have an organization, this Marxist leftist organization, which just the same as Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all the rest of them. They have donors, some of them out of the country, and they are coming together to undermine the law and the constitutional authority. Don't forget, again, the federal government is supposed to protect every state from invasion. That's Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. That's the guarantee clause. So in other words, this group, this organization that has come together in Minneapolis is doing everything to encourage folks to go out and break the law. So what that reminds me of is a RICO case. Racketeer influence corrupt organizations, 1970. That's how we went after these the mafia and all these other gangs. So why don't we use that to go after the Marxist leftists that are doing everything possible? We've seen an 8,000% increase in violent actions against ICE officers. These are federal officers. So I don't know what Pam Bondi or Cash Patel are doing, but to me, I'm just a dumb old paratrooper, just jump out of airplanes, pull a lanyard, go boom, shoot artillery all over the place at bad guys. If I can understand this, if I can see this intricate web, why can't they? Because if we don't stand up for enforcing the law, then what the left is trying to do, and oh, by the way, this whole thing about sanctuary cities, the sanctuary states, unconstitutional. Because in essence, what you're doing is you're harboring people that have broken the law. Let's go back once again. Title 18, United States Code 1325. Unauthorized entry into the United States of America is a federal offense. First time misdemeanor, subsequent times after that, felony. And as well, if you're committing crimes on top of that, murder, rape, child rape, pedophilia, assault, all of these different things, then how can you say you're providing sanctuary to these individuals? You are harboring criminals. So again, I can't see why that couldn't fall under a RICO for these cities that think they can just continue to do so, and also these organizations and the people that are providing them financial support. This is not some organic movement. Where are these people getting the masks and all of these things, all the supplies for them to go out and do what they're doing? So we have to look at this, and I'm going to put it very bluntly, as a counterinsurgency operation. There are many people that have looked at that. There are many former special forces, non-commissioned officers and officers that are looking at this. This is no different. When I was over in Iraq and Afghanistan, there will be people that would be outside the gate, males, and as soon as a convoy or something would leave the gate, they'd be on the cell phone reporting, how many vehicles are going out, which way we're going, north, south, east, west, what have you. And along the route, you will continue to have people that are picking up on cell phones. What's the difference between what we encountered in Iraq and Afghanistan? And of course, you run into IEDs or things of that nature along the way, anything to obstruct or impede that convoy. What's the difference between what we see well organized there in Minneapolis, Minnesota? So we have got to look at it in this way. And also what is very troubling for me is when I hear a governor of a state say that he is going to call up the National Guard to combat against federal law enforcement. Sedition, treason, insurrection, all of those things come to mind. But the hypocrisy of what we see happening is that, remember, and I certainly do down here in the state of Texas, remember when we were trying to use our National Guard to do what the federal government was not doing in the Biden administration, secure the border, which if the federal government does not do it, Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3 of the United States Constitution says that exactly states when actually invaded, when there is a threat, an admitted threat, they can take action without any admit of delay. But yet we had the Biden administration suing the state of Texas, suing the state of Arizona and other states who were trying to bring their National Guard to bear against this invasion of tens of millions. hundreds of thousands of single military age males, tens of thousands of single military age male Chinese, drugs, fentanyl that were killing Americans in record numbers, hundreds of thousands of Americans dead, surpassing what we saw in losses in the Korean and the Vietnam Wars combined. But yet the Biden administration, I mean, just to put some type of obstruction and impediment in the Rio Grande River to try to prevent people from coming across in the low, shallow areas of the river, we were told we had to take them down. So I'm trying to understand, how is it that the Biden administration can violate the Constitution, but the left think it's fine? The Biden administration and their DHS secretary could sit up and say the border is secure, but no one called for his impeachment, talking about Alejandro Mayorkas. But yet now we have a commander of a state, National Guard forces, Tim Walz, who was a former Minnesota National Guardsman, who lied about his service, but let's not forget that. But a governor who is calling up the National Guard to stand against federal law enforcement. I mean, that's some Fort Sumter stuff, if I ever seen it. And those were Democrats back then, too. And let's stop calling them Democrats. They're Marxists. So the hypocrisy of this, and oh, by the way, where's Senator Mark Kelly? I mean, wouldn't Senator Mark Kelly, he's all about illegal orders. When he come up and say to Governor Walz, you know, that's kind of illegal what you're saying. You're going to call it the National Guard to stand against and obstruct federal law enforcement who are acting in pursuance thereof to the Constitution, who are supporting a law, a statute. And Tim Walz should know this. He was a member of Congress. I served with him. So this is what the bottom line is. We don't need to get distracted about Alex Pretty, who, let me just once again reiterate, Title 18 United States Code 111, assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers is a federal offense. And even here in the state of Texas, something very interesting I want you to know. In the state of Texas, in Penal Code 38.03 and 38.15, intentionally to obstruct, hinder, or resist a peace officer is a Class A misdemeanor or felony if a deadly weapon is involved. I wonder if they have a law like that on the books in Minnesota. I can tell you what they do have a law that says, and we here at the American Constitutional Rights Union have the letters, so we got the receipts. On Attorney General Keith Ellison, supposedly the top law enforcement officer in Minnesota, he's sending letters threatening sheriffs in the state of Minnesota if they work with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, under the 287G program, 3 different models there, detention model, warrant model, and the task force model. He's threatening constitutionally elected, duly elected law enforcement officers to not support the Constitution, to allow criminal illegal immigrants to roam freely on the streets. He's threatening them to work with ICE. So this whole thing about we're supporting ICE and we're supporting it, no, they're not. Their attorney general is quoting Minnesota state law saying that sheriffs can't enforce the law. So this is what I wish we could hear more from Pam Bondi or from Kash Patel or from DHS, the Secretary, Christina. Let's talk about the law. Let's talk about the violations thereof. Let's not get into the back and forth. Let's not get into an emotional discussion. Let's just draw the line and say, either you're on the side of the law or you're not. And as I've laid out, Minneapolis, Minnesota, or any other jurisdiction that tries to designate themselves as a sanctuary city or sanctuary state, you're not on the side of the law. What the left wants, without a doubt, are 2 different Americas. Can't allow that to happen. A lawful America and a lawless America. And in the lawless America, well, we know why they want all of the people to be here illegally. They want them counted in the census for congressional representation. They want them voting in our elections. Many of these blue states that are also declaring sanctuary city or state status, they don't even have voter ID. 12 of the states that Kamala Harris won in the last presidential election didn't have voter ID. If we're to live free in the United States of America, we have to live under the law. And those who refuse to live under the law are obstructing, interfering, and impeding the means by which those of us who are legal and law-abiding to live free. And I say no to that. And we all should say no to them. If you want to learn more about the American Constitutional Rights Union, please visit us at theacru.org. And until then, join us for another episode of Live Free TV.